Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video we'll be explaining the functions, we'll be explaining different types of aspirations. We have naturally aspirated engines, turbocharged engines, and supercharged engines. We'll see how they work. But before we get started, remember to subscribe to this channel so you don't miss any new content I upload. Anyway, let's get on with the video. Okay, let's get started with naturally aspirated engines. So these engines, they rely on the air pressure outside and inside the intake manifold, regulated by a throttle body. So what this means, it means that the engine is not aided by anything else other than its intake strokes. So the intake strokes, the vacuum inside the cylinder, when the piston goes down, it actually forces the air to come into the engine. So the air sucks air by itself to create more power if you want performance, or create more boom and creates more efficiency, because the equal amount of air plus the equal amount of fuel goes into the cylinder means that the car is gonna be efficient. So I have a clip of a naturally aspirated car which I'll show in a second, but first I just want to point out that tuners don't really like naturally aspirated cars being as stock as possible, so they put some things like velocity stacks, or those velocity stacks for each cylinder with an individual throttle body to increase performance and efficiency at the same time. So I have a clip. I have a clip of a Toyota Corolla 4AGE engine. Uh, it's basically, I just found it on Instagram, so I'm gonna show you. So this one doesn't have that thing, those velocity stacks per cylinder. It actually has one velocity stack that goes into the one throttle body, aided by a high flow air filter, and those things are pretty loud. I'll show you the video right now. Pretty nifty, huh? Oh man, that is nice. Okay, turbocharged engines. Wow, this is my favorite part of this video. Turbocharged engines. Okay, turbocharged engines. These engines are aided by a turbocharger, which gets its energy from the exhaust gas coming from the engine, and it converts it to compress the air going into the engine, which maximizes efficiency and performance. So yeah, how do this engine work, you might ask? So these engines work like this. So you have the turbocharger. Side is on the exhaust manifold. Okay, and then one side is on the holder side. Okay, so when the turbo rotor starts spinning, the exhaust gas starts spinning the exhaust rotor in the exhaust side of the turbo, which is connected to an intake part of the turbo rotor. So the intake part of the turbo rotor takes air from the air filter or directly from the air outside around it, and then it compresses it into a mass amount into the intake manifold through the throttle body. So yeah, turbocharged engines also have throttle bodies, because acceleration needs to be controlled in such a way. I mean, yeah, yes, it has to be controlled. It has to be controlled at any costs, cause that might cause a bit of a problem, really. Anyway, so sometimes, now that compressed air sometimes, it can cause a bit of a damage to the engine. That's why manufacturers have fitted a turbo intercooler just between the the throttle body and the turbo when it compresses the air going into the engine. So the intercooler cools down that compressed air. It's still compressed, but it cools down before it gets into the engine, which maximizes fuel efficiency by, I think it's 10 to 15%, so which is really impressive. So yeah, so how does a turbo give the car, the engine, more power? So it works like this: the more the exhaust gas, the more the turbo compresses air into the engine, giving you maximum boost, providing that the ECU also provides a good quantity of fuel to the engine. So yes, it's basically simple, right? The more the exhaust gas leaving the turbo, the more the air is compressed into the engine. So yeah, it's pretty simple. Anyway, I have a video that I'm going to show you in a second, but first I want to point out that there's some problems with the turbo, and that is turbo lag, because the turbo first needs to spool up, because remember it's harvesting the energy from the exhaust gas that it's flowing from the exhaust manifold to the turbo. So the less of that exhaust manifold flowing to the turbo, the less the turbo compresses that air and forces it into the engine. So you have to build up RPMs so the turbo spools up. That's why sometimes you hear the turbo whistling. If you hear that whistling sound go higher, that means the turbo is spooling up and it's compressing more air into the engine, which gives you a proper and accurate boom and extra power, and then off you go. It's not like supercharged engines, but this one is more efficient on highway use and everyday use. So I'm gonna show you a video of a turbocharged engine. Be very careful. Don't wear earphones or headphones, otherwise you might get ear rape, because these videos are quite loud. So I'm gonna show you this video. It's a Toyota Supra with a big massive turbo mounted to an inline 6 2JZ engine, and hope you enjoy this video. Check this out. Okay, let's move on to supercharged engines. And this is where we draw the line completely. Yes, it has all the other engines we've mentioned, the turbocharged engines, the throttle bodies and stuff. It also has a compressor like a turbocharger, but it's kind of different. See, a supercharger, it harvests its energy from the crank pulley. You heard me? Yes, from the crank pulley. So it robs some of the engine power to make more power. So it needs power from the crank pulley to actually compress its air into the engine, and that's why it makes a whining sound. So yeah, it means that the pressure is a little bit too high in the system as the RPM rises. It's usually made for cars like race cars, just not really track focused cars, but mainly drag racing cars, for example, a Dodge Demon or a Ford Mustang, the late generation Ford Mustangs, but mainly it's Dodge and yeah, it's Dodge and Ram that uses supercharger as their alternative. Well, they stopped making supercharged engines. They are switching to electric cars, which is sad to say this, but I love internal combustion engines. I don't give a I don't give a damn about electric cars. I don't like electric cars to say the least. But I guess it is what it is. But yeah, back to the topic. Supercharged engines are very, very, very inefficient. You know why? That extra power taken from the crank pulley, and the engine is already transferring power to other things like the alternator, the aircon pump, and other things like steering pump, and yeah, other things like electronics in the car, radio. The alternator has to work harder to charge up the battery, and you're using the battery to power up your accessories in the car as well. And there's another thing, which is a supercharger that's eating some horsepower from the engine to give you more power. So it's actually a problem for those engines. That's why those engines normally they do not last longer than the turbocharged engines or the naturally aspirated engines. So that's why you see these engines are not very common in today's automotive world. But yeah, Dodge um, is still making supercharged engines, those Hellcats, Demons, and Dodge Chargers. I really love that whining sound from a supercharger, and that whine from a supercharger increases with the RPM. Cause remember, I told you that that supercharger gets its power from the crank pulley using a belt. So yeah, when the whine increases only when you touch the accelerator pedal, and the only benefit for the supercharged engine is that you get instant torque the moment you press that accelerator pedal. So it's just like an electric. The moment you put your foot on the floor, it's time to go. Anyway, I have a video I have a video of a Dodge Hellcat doing a burnout, and another one. Maybe I'll just show one of the two. Uh, I'll just show one of the two, but you just hear the whine from the supercharged engine, and yes, supercharged engine makes its whine from that crank pulley using a belt to the supercharger, because the supercharger makes compresses it's very roughly, and yeah, it provides it to the engine at instant blow at once. Anyway, here's the video. Hope you like it. Check it out. Hope you liked today's video. If you did, please give it a like, and also if you have any suggestions, comment down below in the comment section and I'll possibly make it happen. Also, if you are new to this channel, subscribe to this channel and turn your notifications on so you are alerted when I make a new upload. Anyway, that's it for today. See you in the next video. Bye for now.